Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This is the show where we really try to dig into some compelling ideas, strip away all the fluff, and just give you that essential knowledge. We're not aiming to just, throw more information at you. It's about getting to the core, getting that blueprint for some real understanding.
Exactly. And today, we're stepping into some really important territory, self-exploration. This deep dive is all about practical awareness, looking at the structure of the self, particularly the ego. We're drawing from some, really powerful teachings about presence and observation. Think of it as a kind of shortcut for you, the listener, to grasp those patterns that often create so much internal struggle, a feeling of being overwhelmed.
Absolutely. And we're kind of starting with one of the oldest challenges out there, aren't we? That famous line from the Oracle of Delphi. Know yourself. Instantly, our minds jump to, facts. Knowing our history, what we like, our job title, maybe even our personal pros and cons list.
But the material we're digging into today really pushes back on that. It suggests that knowing yourself isn't accumulating data, it's actually the same thing as being yourself. They're inseparable. And that's often the first hurdle, right? Because if self-knowledge is about being, then it can't really be about collecting labels or external facts. It's more about seeing what you aren't.
That's such a crucial shift. Moving from knowledge as something you get to knowledge as identifying with, just being. So today, our mission is pretty clear. We want to unpack these two really fundamental levels of self-knowledge, the deep one and the more superficial one. And then we'll see how this plays out in everyday life. Like, how do we tell the difference between genuinely enjoying something and being trapped by needing it? And finally, there's this surprising test, often a bit uncomfortable, that shows you instantly if you're enjoying life or if you're kind of caught.
Yeah, ultimately, it's about figuring out what your sense of self is really built on. Is it solid, like bedrock presence? Or is it something shaky, like, the latest trend, your job, or even how clean your car is?
Okay, so let's get into this framework right away. The teachings we're looking at are pretty structured about this. They say knowing yourself isn't just one thing. It's like a two-part practice, two levels that depend on each other. Understanding that link is really key.
You can think of it like a foundation and then the layer you observe from. So level one, the source calls it the deeper level, and that's being presence. This one's often the toughest for our thinking minds to get around because, you can't really define it easily. It's not a concept in the usual sense.
Right. It feels a bit like a paradox. The source says there's nothing to know about presence. So if I'm trying to know myself,
Yeah.
and the deepest part is presence, but I can't know anything about it,
Hmm.
what do I do then?
Exactly. You can't pin it down with thoughts. You
Right.
can't write a definition that captures it. Like the teaching says, you can only be present. Knowing yourself deeply means knowing yourself as that presence. It's like the awareness itself, the space before the thoughts. We get confused because we look for a thing to know, an object, but presence is just the space where everything else happens.
Okay, so maybe an analogy helps. Presence isn't the song playing on the radio or the static either. It's more like the radio itself, the whole field allowing the broadcast. It's the container, not the stuff inside.
That's a really good way to put it, actually. Presence is the awareness behind all the mental chatter, the silence underneath the noise. It's just that raw, basic ability to perceive. That's the fundamental reality of who you are before all the stories get layered on top.
Okay, that makes sense. But if level one, the foundation, is this sort of effortless state of just being, where does the actual work come in? That must be level two, right? The superficial level, the ego observation part?
Yeah.
That sounds more active.
Precisely. Level two is where the practice really happens. It's about knowing your own ego, being able to spot its patterns, its reactions, its demands when they pop up. When it happens, this is self-observation. It's about knowing your usual anxieties, that inner critic, the grudges you hold, the need for approval. You have to look at that ego structure, which is really just a bundle of old thoughts and habits.
But here's where I get stuck, and I bet some listeners do too. How do you do both at once? If I am the ego, totally lost in my thoughts and worries, how can I possibly observe it? I don't feel like I have any distance.
And that's exactly why this source insists these two levels go together. They're completely linked. You absolutely need the presence from level one because only that quiet, non-reactive awareness has enough space, enough light, you could say, to actually observe the ego in level two. If you're lost in a thought, the thought is basically running the show. But if you can step back just a little into presence, that thought becomes just the thing, an object appearing in your awareness. and suddenly it doesn't have the same grip on you.
Okay, I think I get it. So presence is like the flashlight beam, and the ego is all the stuff making shapes in the dark, the shadow play. If I try to fight the shadows, I'm just making more mental noise, which is still the ego, right? Ego fighting ego. But if I shine the light of presence, I can see the shadow clearly and realize it's not solid. It's just a pattern.
Exactly that. And the amazing result, the source says, is that when you recognize the ego pattern, it starts to dissolve. Not necessarily vanish forever, but the habitual patterns become harmless. You're no longer sort of possessed by them. They might still show up, those old thoughts or reactions, but they lose their automatic controlling power. You see the pattern, and because you see it, you don't have to act it out. That's real freedom in practice.
It's like hearing your phone buzz. One way is you have to check it instantly. That's compulsion, ego maybe. The other way is you hear it, you notice the urge, but you consciously choose. That's presence allowing choice. Okay, this framework is really helpful. Now we can use it to look at the real world stuff like appearances and things we own. Right, let's shift from this powerful but maybe abstract idea to something really practical we all deal with every day. How do I know if I'm just enjoying something or if I'm actually trapped by it? Let's start with appearance. Looking good, liking clothes, taking care of ourselves.
And the source material is very clear on this point. There's nothing wrong with that. Enjoying things on the surface, the level of form, liking how you look, enjoying choosing clothes, even, superficially, enjoying being seen by others. That's all perfectly fine. It's just part of being human in the world.
Okay, but here comes the crucial part, the dividing line. And this is where that level 2 observation has to kick in, right? The core question the teaching asks is, do you derive your entire or a large part of your sense of who you are from that? Because that signals you're in the grip of ego. Or are you simply enjoying looking good?
And that's a really significant question, because if your appearance or your personal style or your brand becomes the actual foundation for your identity, the thing that makes you feel worthy, well, you're building on shaky ground. It means your inner state becomes totally dependent on what's happening outside. Did they like my outfit? Am I looking older? Do people find me attractive? That constant need for validation creates anxiety.
I think this is a massive challenge for a lot of us. I mean, we live in a culture that constantly connects how you look with your value, your success. Is it even possible to enjoy aesthetics without any ego getting involved? It feels like such a fine line.
It is subtle, definitely. But I think it's revealed by the pressure you feel. Genuine enjoyment feels light. There's no underlying anxiety. Egoic attachment feels heavy. It's fueled by the fear of losing that form or the fear of being judged negatively. You feel that little sting of anxiety if someone doesn't notice or if you feel you didn't quite look the part. That feeling, that's the ego scrambling to protect its fragile sense of self.
And we have to mention that slightly grounding, maybe even funny point from the source that puts it all in perspective. Enjoy the physical form, sure. But remember, it won't last. Time gets us all in the end. The teaching even mentioned the audience laughing at that, recognizing the truth in it.
Yeah, that laughter is actually a sign of level 1 presence popping through for a second. It's the deeper self seeing the irony, building this forever identity on something totally temporary. If you are rooted at a deeper level in that presence, you can absolutely enjoy the level of form, clothes, looks, whatever, without being completely trapped in them. Your nice clothes or your good looks aren't the foundation for your sense of self.
So that's what you meant by functional freedom. We use form, we wear clothes, drive cars, but the form doesn't own us. The second it starts dictating how we feel inside, we've crossed from enjoyment into being trapped. And this trap seems even more obvious when we talk about possessions, doesn't it? Okay, so let's take this idea of identity being tied up in form and move it from our appearance to external things, possessions. The source calls this a huge trap, deriving who you are, your status, your feeling of success from what you have.
Oh, absolutely. The ego just loves to extend itself into things. It sees, say, a fancy gadget or a luxury car and thinks, that's not just a thing. That's part of me, proof that I'm successful or have good taste. And this mental add-on is everywhere because, well, objects are concrete, they're easy to see, easy to compare, and society often uses them as markers for status.
Right. And the source draws this really sharp line between egoic attachment and just simple enjoyment of something. But the problem is we're pretty good at fooling ourselves, aren't we? We can easily tell ourselves, oh, I just bought this expensive watch because I appreciate the craftsmanship, zero ego involved.
Exactly. That's the ego being sneaky, hiding in plain sight. So how do you actually know the truth about your relationship with something? The teaching is really clear. The only foolproof way to know is until you lose it. That moment of loss, that's a moment of pure, undeniable truth. It cuts through all the self-justification.
Let's use that car story from the source, because it really paints the picture. It shows the difference between practical hassle and deep suffering. So imagine that car you love, maybe identify with a bit, and one day it's gone, stolen. Scenario one, car's missing. You realize, okay, somebody must have taken it. Now, if there was serious egoic attachment, the result isn't just annoyance, it's deep emotional suffering. It's a lot of upset and anger and wailing.
And we really need to stress what that suffering is. It's not just the practical problem, oh great, now I need to deal with insurance and get a new car. That's inconvenience. The suffering is that gut-wrenching feeling of being personally violated, like a piece of you has been ripped away. The ego feels packed, smaller because its identity extension got broken.
That distinction is so important. If I only enjoyed the car as a useful object, I'd be annoyed, maybe stressed about the practicalities, but my inner peace wouldn't be shattered. Annoyance, yes. Despair or rage, no. But that intense rage shows that the car wasn't just a car. It was holding up some part of my identity structure.
And then there's the smaller test, the more everyday one. Scenario 2 from the teaching. You come back to your car, maybe you just washed it, it's all shiny, looking great, the form you appreciate. And you see a scratch, just a little one.
That tiny imperfection, that minor disruption of the perfect form, that's your opportunity, as the source puts it, of finding out what kind of relationship you had with your car. It's like a MIDI instant truth test.
Yeah, because maybe just 5 minutes before you were thinking, I really appreciate this car, it's beautiful, but hey, no ego here. But then you see the scratch and bam, that immediate surge of anger, that knot in your stomach, that reveals the truth. That little flash of suffering is the ego reacting because its sense of perfection, its projected identity got marked.
And this loops right back to the 2 levels, doesn't it? To handle the scratch without suffering, you need enough presence, level 1, to just notice that initial flare-up of anger before the mind spins a whole story around it. If there wasn't that deep attachment, the reaction would be more like, ah, dang, okay, need to get that fixed. The suffering proves the object was part of the me, a false foundation that just got chipped. Okay, so if attachment to possessions leads to suffering, and we see that truth when we lose something, it really raises the next question. Why do we do it? Why this constant drive to get more, buy more, accumulate stuff we don't always need?
Well, the source material offers a really clear psychological explanation, and it goes right back to the nature of the ego itself. If you're operating from presence, from that deeper level, you're not really compelled to just accumulate endlessly. You get what you need, or maybe something you truly appreciate for its quality or beauty.
But the ego, it doesn't start from a place of enough, does it? It's fundamentally based on a feeling of deficiency, like something's missing. So the main reason we accumulate things, from the ego's point of view, is to try and satisfy the prominent sense of lack that is the ego.
Exactly. And we should probably unpack that lack a bit. It can show up in lots of ways. Maybe it's feeling a lack of status, so you buy branded stuff. Or maybe a lack of connection, so objects become substitutes almost. Or maybe it's insecurity, so you hoard resources, The basic belief the ego operates on is, I'm not okay as I am, but if I get that thing, then I'll be okay. Then I'll be complete.
Right. But it's always just a temporary fix, isn't it? Like putting a Band-Aid on something that needs stitches. Let's trace that cycle, because I think everyone recognizes this pattern somewhere in their lives. It starts with that urge, that compulsion maybe, shopping expeditions every other weekend, or just constantly scrolling online stores.
And then the moment of getting it, you come home maybe with those shiny bags, and just for a moment, the ego feels elated. You got the thing. Here's a new pair of shoes, a new phone, whatever. And there's this brief little high, this rush of feeling complete, successful, worthy. The ego thinks, see, I did it. I did the thing. I must be okay now.
But it never lasts, does it? That feeling. The satisfaction doesn't last very long. The shiny new thing quickly just becomes background noise. The novelty fades, sometimes really fast, like hours or days. And then that empty feeling comes back. The sense of lack comes back. And the ego starts whispering or maybe shouting, I need some more.
And that's the core of addiction, really. When you keep using that temporary fix to cover up that deeper unease or emptiness, it easily becomes an addiction to shopping or collecting or whatever form it takes. So if you feel that constant inner push, that need to get something new just to feel okay for a little while, and that's your signal, the source says it's a clear sign that, oh, that's the ego driving the bus.
And it goes way beyond just shopping, too. It's the same mechanism behind constantly needing likes on social media or chasing status symbols to prove you're making it. It all stems from that core signature of the ego, a continuous sense of not enough on whatever level.
Which stands in such stark contrast to the non-egoic way, which is just, appreciating surface realities, enjoying things that are lovely to hold or nice to look at, that's fine. But when you're in that state, that feeling of this is my thing, that possessiveness, it starts to fade. The enjoyment is there, but without the grasping, the clinging, and especially without the anxiety about possibly losing it.
That idea of appreciating things without that heavy sense of mine leads really naturally into this concept of stewardship, doesn't it? Moving from I own this to maybe I'm looking after this. That feels like a big mental shift, especially in our consumer culture.
It does, and the source material has that great little anecdote about the ad for a really expensive watch, the one with the sort of spiritual angle. The tagline was something like, "You never actually own this watch. You only look after it for the next generation."
Yeah, brilliant marketing, right? Selling
Right.
non-attachment at a premium price.
Yeah.
I probably should mention the funny part the source pointed out. You still had to shell out, what, like $20,000 or more for the watch you were really looking after? The price tag itself kind of reinforces the ego,
Yeah.
even while the slogan is denying it.
Yeah, there's definitely irony there. But if we look past the commercial aspect for a second, the core message touches on a deep truth. We are just temporary caretakers of everything physical. And thinking that way naturally shifts your focus away from the ego boost of having it and towards appreciating the actual quality of the thing itself, how it was made.
Ah, okay. So it moves the focus from the external factors like brand or price to the internal quality, the consciousness that went into making it.
Exactly. Like the example used in the source, appreciating well-made mechanical watches, the ones that tick, that have intricate movements. The appreciation there isn't just for the name on the dial. It's for the skill, the precision, the care involved.
And what creates that appreciable quality? According to the source, it's because the watchmaker sat down and meticulously put them together. They gave it a lot of attention.
And this is where it gets really interesting and connects back to that level 1 presence we talked about. The idea is like if something, a watch, a piece of furniture, anything, is made with that kind of complete focused attention, with the maker really being present in their work, it somehow has that sense of quality to it. It's almost like the consciousness of the maker becomes embedded, becomes part of the object. Real quality isn't just materials or price. It's the presence invested in its creation.
Wow, that really resonates. It suggests that if the maker's presence is sort of encoded in the object, then we, the user or observer, probably need our own presence to fully perceive and appreciate that quality. If we're just lost in our thoughts, distracted by the ego, maybe we only register the surface stuff, the brand, the cost, and miss that deeper quality of attention.
Precisely. And this isn't just about luxury items. The source brings it right down to earth, saying the exact same principle applies to something as simple as making a meal.
Oh yeah, you can totally tell the difference, can't you? If someone cooks a meal with complete attention, really present with the ingredients, the process, it somehow tastes better. It feels like it has an additional energy field. It nourishes you differently.
Yep.
And a meal thrown together distractedly, maybe while stressed or rushed, you can often taste that too, can't you? It lacks something.
It brings the whole conversation together, really. Whether it's a fancy watch or a simple dinner, true non-egoic appreciation seems to be about being present enough ourselves to connect with the quality of attention, either our own attention in the moment or the attention the maker put into it. When we can let go of the "this is mine" feeling, we actually open up to appreciating the form itself much more deeply. #outro.
Well, this has been quite a deep dive into self-knowledge, taking us way beyond just, personality traits or life stories. We've really seen that knowing yourself is this dual thing, needing both that deep, quiet foundation of presence, that's level 1, and also the ongoing, mindful observation of the ego's habits, level 2.
Yeah, and we've seen how the ego operates from that fundamental sense of lack, which drives us to accumulate things or seek validation, giving only temporary relief. But that core takeaway, that practical test, remains starkly simple. The moment of loss revealed everything.
Right. If the thing you value, your looks, your possessions, your status, is just something you enjoy, losing it is okay. It's part of life's flow, maybe inconvenient but not devastating. But if that thing has become tangled up with who you believe you are, then losing it causes real suffering. That pain, that anger, that's the ego screaming because its false foundation just cracked.
And that leaves us with a really interesting thought to ponder, building on that idea of attention and quality we just discussed. If the attention and consciousness of the person making something can imbue it with a certain quality, then what about your attention? How does your own level of presence right now shape the intrinsic quality of your very next experience, your next conversation, the next moment you choose to live?
Because if attention creates quality in things, just imagine what consistent present attention could do for the quality of your entire life. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this exploration helps you navigate that fine line between enjoying the world and being trapped by it. We'll catch you next time.